Hi, I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. We are going through my Hampden yard today, equalizing the new nukes that I've installed. We've got ranges in so far from 2 frames of brood to 5-6 frames of brood, and we're balancing them out so that they end up at something in the 3 to 4 range. So that way there's a lack of danger of swarming from the big ones, and the smaller ones are catching up. So let's see how they look. Now, we've not been through these ones yet, have we?
No, you have not.
Okay. And this is why the front of the hive is full of bees, because this one is full of bees. This is one that would definitely be in danger of swarming if it was left like this. If it was a nuke I was just growing for honey production, I would be putting a super on this right away. Because you sometimes get this in, if all your brood emerges quickly, you can remember each frame of brood, full frame of cat brood that emerges could fill 3 frames of bees. So we've had a few frames of brood emerging here, and we've filled this super up from 5 frames to 10 frames in no time at all. So this colony is likely to be getting thinned down because it just looks too strong for right now. Now, we had frames of foundation on the outside, and I dare say they'll have been busy building comb on these. These were foundation a few days ago, and they're not frames of foundation now. They are fully drawn out and pretty much full of nectar. Filling up with nectar on this side too. So built right out to the edges. If there aren't any swarm cells in this colony yet, I will be both surprised and delighted. Ooh, this is heavy. 7 pounds of food up here. A little bit of pollen. Lots and lots of honey. A lot of pollen on that side. Keep an eye out for the queen, because I know I'll be taking some frames of resources out of here. So ideally we find where the queen is so we can move the bees along with them. This frame is full of eggs. Full of bees, full of eggs. Now, one of the downside of getting bees from down south is occasionally you get a small hive. That's a bump. Yeah, I wanted to kill it and it blew off. That was a small hive beetle. Don't see much signs of small hive beetle, but where we see them, I'll kill them. Fortunately, up here in the northeast, we get very few of them. They usually only come by transferring bees from one part of the country to another. They generally don't overwinter well here, although we are getting warmer and warmer winters. That means we're more and more likely to get small hive beetles. Another good frame of brood here. This queen cup here, but it's not a queen cell. You may find it easier to get better pictures if you stand up and look down on the frame rather than sideways. If you stand over my left shoulder would probably be the best bet. Behind me here on the left. On my left would probably be easier. That way you won't be casting a shadow on it as well. or 3 frames of brood. I think this one was resources. Nice emerging brood there. Queen cup, but nothing in it. Queen cups are just the precursor to queen cells. Just that larva was in the cell next to it, so that's okay. No egg in them, so nothing to signify that the clock is now set for swarming, so that's all good. Mite treatment strip the colony came with. I generally don't use them myself, but the person who grew these Italian bees used those. Very glad to have low mite levels. Now, these are freshly built queen cups. Let's see if there's anything in them. Nothing in that one. And nothing in that one, good. But they're building new ones, so this is heads up. We're starting to feel the crowded pressure. So as I say, if this was your own hive at home, and you've only got a couple of them, you'd be putting a deep super on this right away in order to get them space to build up. But I'm looking to balance the strength I've got amongst these others, which I'll be creaming off. Right now we've got 5, 6 frames of brood. Not necessarily full frames of brood, but I'm going to be taking some frames of brood here and put it in hives that have just 3 frames of brood. Just to get them up to say 4. Our average might be nearer 4 than 3. This is only half full, there's no brood on this side. Plenty of pollen. Still looking for the queen, so we don't have to hunt each frame as we transfer it. Could still be brood in this last frame. I see another small hive beetle here. I'm going to try and squish it when I can. That's hiding underneath the little crack.
So Peter, if you had people at home that had this situation and they actually found their queen,
yeah,
but they continued to find queen cell cups, what would your recommendation be?
Well, certainly the cups are not an indication that the hive is going to swarm. It's just the precursor to that. It's a heads up that they're getting ready. I would say unless you had queen cells, if you put another deep super on this, you're unlikely to get the swarm. But if you start to have cells that have an egg in them, and they're starting to elongate them, now you're starting, the clock is ticking. They've decided they would like to swarm. There's some nice young brood in this frame. So I would say this hive would be fine if I just put a deep super on it. It's not likely to swarm because they haven't started the process, and there's still time to give them the space to grow into. But the alternative is to split it down a little bit, which is what I'm going to do to hold it back a bit that way. So we actually have 7 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frames with brood on them, possibly an 8th. hard to put them back in. That's all that last one was very honey under. So we did not see the queen, so we're going to have to be particularly careful when transferring frames of brood that we don't transfer the queen with it. Now maybe when we go back looking for frames of brood, we'll be looking for the queen. As soon as we see the queen, then we can transfer bees as well, but it's going to be a challenge until we see the queen because this hive is bursting with bees. So I would like to put, I've got back here, you know as we went along, the frames of brood we've got in here. This one's a 3, this one's a 4, that one's a 3, that's a 4, that's a 5, that's a 4, that's a 3. So we may yet put a frame of brood into this one and maybe that one. I'm going to cut this down. So first of all, we've already been through it. We've got plenty of bees that are still growing. So we'll take a frame of foundation out of this hive, open up a space in the brood chamber itself. Go into where we know we have some brood. This first one here. This one has very little brood on it, but we're going to check it again. There's most of the sources, so there wasn't any brood on this one. We'll look for the queen. Hold resources. Certainly don't need a frame of resources. Oh, there's the queen. Look, on the frame of honey at the top, right here. So the last sort of place you'd normally expect to find all over capped honey there. So that's handy. So if we put this queen back on this outside edge very carefully, and we take the frames next to it out, we can take any of the other frames out now. Got some nice eggs here, so we're going to transfer these straight in here. That's now framed. Change that. Another 3. Take another 3. I like that hive. I've got some nice cat brood and some young brood. Take another 3 and put it in the other. This colony was actually queenless. It's got queen cells in there. But we're just going to give it a boost along. When those queen cells emerge, this colony is not that far behind the others. off, so they're jumping at the camera. And we've got a nice honey flow on now, so generally speaking, these bees are going to get on with each other absolutely fine. There'll be the minimum amount of fighting and disruption. So I'm not too worried about anything going wrong in that regard. Slow this hive down somewhat. Now we've taken out 3 frames of brood. We've got at least 4 frames of brood, possibly a 5th in there. But I think we've thinned that down enough that this hive is going to be fine. Now we've got room for her to get to work on here. Move this frame of resources in somewhat. Frame of foundation here. So putting a frame of foundation in, they can put a lot of energy into building wax as well. But even having thinned this down as much as we have done, this colony is still strong enough for another circle on top. So I might even take one more frame of resources out of here. Take this one out. Honey. I'll do it with one hand. Resources in there. Now that's pretty much just food and resources, not really a frame of food, which I'm not going to change its annotation there. Putting a frame of drawn comb in there as well. The queen's somewhere to put small babies. Foundation there.
So Peter, on this box, frame number 2 from your closest would be the one with the queen.
Yeah.
And so she's going to work her way throughout all the frames as she goes, laying eggs.
They're going to rebuild. They have to yet to build the comb on this one, and this one, but she'll be going back and forth, working her way all around, up and down, side to side, through the frames of bees, in order to find empty spots. So for brood emerging, she'll be laying there in those freshly vacated cells, where there's new cells being built. She'll be laying in those too. It's getting time to refuel our smoker. So we're talking about this at 4. So it might even be a 5. looks good. A little bit above average of what we had before. It's looking like a 4 or 5 to me. We've got these in every seam except for this outside one here. Starting to fill with resources. You can see the new nectar in here. All of this is brand new nectar. Frame of honey that was put in here originally. Some empty space there. Pollen. Just getting into the eggs now on this frame. This has still plenty of room on this side. I wouldn't say there was enough brood on there to call it a frame of brood, but this is a frame of brood. Having said that, we have a lot of drawn brood. There's a queen here. But this queen is laying on a frame that has once had laying workers on it. All of this is drone brood. Terrible, terrible frame. Because once you've had drone brood grow in a cell, it stretches the cell out. So this is a frame that previously had laying workers, and now the queen has no choice but to lay an unfertilized egg into these frames. So this is not a sign that this queen is failing. This is a sign that the original hive that this frame came from had failed. So we've got a lovely queen here, and I'll bet we find lots of worker brood in the rest of it. But this frame is really fit for the scrap heap, at least on that side and on this side, this drone brood. It's all stretched out cells. So that will end up, this is perfectly fine to store honey resources in. So if it's on the outside edge, that would be a perfectly good place to put it. In fact, I may move this to the outside edge for just that purpose, even the queen is on it and things there. If this fills up with honey, that's absolutely fine. It's a perfectly good storage frame, but in terms of a brood frame, I wouldn't want that in one of my nukes. So here we've got plenty of worker brood. You see, she's had plenty of perfectly good worker brood here. There's a great pattern, and she's refilling this area. So she's a perfectly good queen. It's just the frame that was used came from a hive that once upon a time had laying workers. And that's why you get all those drone cells in it. Lots of resources here. Young larvae on this side. So not a huge amount of brood in here yet. She's just starting to lay on some of these frames. There's eggs on this side, but not many yet. So she's working her way across. We've had the brood emerge. She's been backfilling the cells with brood, eggs. So we've got about 3 to 4 frames of brood here. We're just going to leave the queen and this colony here. In fact, I'm not going to put the frame down, but we'll put it inside. Make sure the queen and that frame stays outside. So in another week, this will be really filled up with brood again. I'm not going to top it up, we've got all sorts of bees in there. So we'll continue to do the balancing here, but that's what I'm doing right now. It's a good thing going through your yards. If you've got multiple colonies, it's a really good idea to go through and balance hives that have very little brood with those with a lot of brood, and it keeps your management a lot easier because you know what to expect when you're going into the yard. If I could go in here and get all of these 4 frames of brood, they're all pretty much need the next thing at the same time, so it makes things much easier to predict. So equalizing the hives, really important. Here found the bee whisperer. See you next time.